So, the Western Bloc Party. Let's look at the history of the Western Bloc Party. Now, as I say, the Western Canada concept had the problem that they did to it what they've done to Western Canadians all along, divide and conquer. There are 4 provinces, they all treat them differently, and if the federal government can make one fight against the other, that's how they divide and conquer Western Canada. So what have I been able to do? I see from experience how we get infiltrated, we get undermined, we get defamed in the media, then we get a whole bunch of internal disruption, then we get this province-to-province conflict. How do we overcome that? Well, the Bloc Québécois, we can learn a lot from the Bloc Québécois in Quebec. What they did was they said, look, there's a lot of federal money for a party that runs in a federal election. Did you know that if you get 3% of the vote, you get $1 or 29 or something for every vote you get? And you also have the power to give tax-deductible status, like any other party, for donations of $100. It's $25 from your pocket, $75 off your income tax. So the Bloc Québécois used the idea of separatism in Ottawa. Now it irritates them terribly that federal money is actually subsidizing separatism. Well, you know, they should complain, really. Why? It's honest money being used for an honest purpose by people who donate to what they believe in. Well, of course, they want everybody just to donate to the Conservative Party, the Liberal Party, and the NDP, the stools under which this pillar rests. We therefore decided that we could overcome the problem of provincial divisions. You know, British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba. Basically, you can have one party that reaches from Winnipeg to Vancouver to the Yukon. And we have the legal right to be here, we have the legal right to organize, and we have the legal right to seek our goal. Now, what is our goal? An independent nation of Western Canada, chosen by the people of every province. And then last night somebody said, well, how do the people of the province choose? Well, they have to have a Western Canadian separatist party in their province, or their government has to adopt the idea that it's a good thing to give the people a choice. Very simple, really. Yeah. All we say is give the people of Alberta the same choice the people of Quebec had. Do you want Canada or not? Let's talk about it. If you think there's one reason to stay in Canada, tell me what it is. What do you get from Ottawa that you couldn't get better, quicker, and cheaper somewhere else? Ask anyone who tells you, I'm a Canadian. Well, what is in it for you? The flag, the national anthem? What? Check your tax bill. See if you pay as much taxes as an American. And why do you pay taxes at all? When the oil revenues, the potash revenues, the uranium revenues, the fishery, forestry, mining, agriculture could very well mean you didn't need to pay income tax for the infrastructure you require. Yeah. So what are we doing? We're subsidizing a bankrupt government in Ottawa to keep their bribery in place, to subsidize Bombardier, to subsidize Ford and Chrysler, and whatever else they need to keep those voters in Central Canada happy. How stupid are we? How much longer are we going to put up with this? That's all you got to ask people. I stumped, what's her name now, the lady in the talk show in, you know, the lady in the talk show in Edmonton. I just finally said, give me one reason to stay in Canada. Yeah. One thing that you get from Ottawa you couldn't get better as Leslie Primo, thank you. And it's the longest period of dead air I ever heard. Like 15 seconds, it's a long time. She didn't answer. And then she said, how dare you ask me this question?
Oh, that's how they
Well, of course, it is a good question. Tell me one good thing you get from Ontario you couldn't get better, quicker, and cheaper from either the United States or China or Japan or Korea or any of the other countries.
They have all the goods from the U.S. through their borders and they stamp it with bilingualism and
right.
Then they ship it out here. And
then we pay more for it. Yeah, that's right.
Nothing comes from the U.S. over the West.
Not usually, no. It has to go through a distributor who's situated where the center of the universe is, somewhere in Toronto. Well, I've covered briefly the history of Western Canada that I consider important. I've covered the history of the separatist movement. I've covered the history of the Western Bloc Party and why we exist. And I'm basically moving right along here to tell you that in a little while I'll answer your questions, and that's the best part of every meeting. Well, what can we give you? On the part of the Western Bloc Party, what can we do for you? Thank you for coming. Well, the Western Bloc Party is a federal political party that can unite and educate the people of Western Canada. The people of Western Canada need hope. And there is no hope unless they have the option of independence. Now, it's obvious there's no separatist party of any visibility in Alberta today. There could be, and we'll help them if they're existing. We want to work with them. We want to help to build their movement because it's through a provincial referendum established by a provincial government the people of every province will get a choice. We do want to build the bridges between British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, and we want to unite them in the understanding we can build a great new nation far better than the one we've lived in all our lives, one where freedom of speech will be real, and it's gradually being taken away from us, one where we will not live in a police state where you have to go through a scan every time you go to an airport, one which will not be the situation where, thank you for coming, come on in, which will not be the situation that you cannot actually communicate with your government in your own language, one where you won't have to get on a plane and listen to someone speak to you in a foreign language while everybody on the whole plane knows they don't understand a word of it. We want to build a free, independent nation of Western Canada with one language, with a Triple E Senate. Now, why would you want a Triple E Senate? Simply, as the Reform Party used to say, so that all parts of the country will have equal power. So you won't have a Toronto of Western Canada. So that Calgary won't run the whole of Alberta. And how does it work in the United States? It's very simple. If there was only the parliamentary system that we have in Canada, in the United States, 2 states would elect the president and the whole of the House of Representatives, and there wouldn't be a Senate. How long would the United States stay together?
That's the beauty of their system, is the Senate.
Well, yeah, obviously. The United States could not function as a united country if it didn't have a Senate with 2 senators from every state, 2 senators from Delaware, 2 senators from Rhode Island, 2 senators from Texas, 2 senators from New York, 2 senators from California with every bit as much power as all the others.
Yeah.
They don't run the whole country because there's 3 levels of government, right? The president constitutes the executive power, sometimes even legislative power, if he has enough influence. Secondly, the House of Representatives, which is representation by population. But what we have is the House of Representatives, the leader of the House of Representatives in our Parliament of Canada, the House of Commons being equivalent, he appoints the Supreme Court without question.
Yeah, appointed.
Right, and he appoints all the senators. He appoints all the judges above a provincial court judge. The guy has more power than the King of England ever had.
And we don't even vote for our leaders. They're
well,
not
thank you. Hey, I'll tell you what, I'll trade places. You come up here and do the talking. I'll sit down and take a rest.
He knows.
I realize there are a lot of people know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I try to say this because a lot of people don't know what I'm saying. I know that I can back it up. I know that I'm here to answer questions in a few minutes, but I want to set out the general framework of why we're here, what we're trying to do, and how you can help us, and how we can help you. First of all, we understand why we want a Triple E Senate. I'll move on. We need free trade with the world, not just with the United States, not as a captive audience and market for any country, but with every country in the world. Free trade is a better option than having basically a tariff-protected base that becomes a decadent industry. We need to have no subservience to the New World Order, and by that I mean today, the price of oil and gas is determined not by the producers either in Saudi Arabia or in Alberta. It is determined by forces that you and I probably don't even recognize.
OPEC cartel.
But, yeah, partly, but there are even more powerful forces. We won't go into that. What we can be is a truly independent nation because we have a diversity of resources and a great environment that we can protect. Immigration is the real cause of pollution. Because every person who comes here wants a house, a car, a road to drive on, a school, a hospital, and every time we bring in new people, that means more consumption of our own land and resources. For the people who live here, we have enough. But if you think we can solve the problems of the third world by inviting everybody, think of this, we could bring 100 million people into Western Canada and the third world would still be overpopulated, poor, and starving. So we sink ourselves and not benefit anyone else. You have to think of the people and the land you live in first. Yeah, we can do great things for the third world. Once we have developed the technology and the ability and the resources and the tax-free status that makes people proud and free and prosperous, I might want to do something for somebody else then. We have problems here to solve first.